After recently watching Sound of Freedom at the movie theater, I was inspired to see what could I do to help stop child sex trafficking. So I tried to inform myself by watching interviews about the movie, and many had James Caviezel talking about the film. He's the main actor in the movie who is most famous for playing Jesus in The Passion of the Christ. And in Sound of Freedom, he plays the role of a real-life action hero, Tim Ballard, who the movie is based on. But after watching enough interviews with these gentlemen, I have to say something feels very off with their hyper-religiosity and the delusions it causes people like them to see the world through. And I shudder to think how many people it will inspire to do the same. Not to mention how that delusional way of thinking actually feeds into the very problems that people feel the need to pray over. And yet I must say, if the stories are true that Tim Ballard speaks about when it comes to Operation Underground Railroad, the not-for-profit charity he created, and how they've helped save hundreds of children from child sex trafficking, that is awesome. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad there are people like Tim Ballard on the planet who are actually doing something about one of humanity's most despicable acts of cruelty that somehow, someway, certain adults engage in. But no matter how heroic it may seem that Tim Ballard quit his former Homeland Security job to go and save children, it is insane that his wife would tell him he better quit his job and rescue kids because she would not let him jeopardize her salvation in heaven if he didn't do so.
Well, I'll add this piece because that was my big concern. And Catherine said to me, and she believed it. This was all in that same conversation. She said, I don't care if we end up living in a tent. We will not go back to our maker and said we didn't try to help these children. So that helped ease my mind because I thought, well, then okay, if we lose our house.
That type of thinking can get people killed. And considering Tim Ballard had 6 children of his own at the time, he was really putting their real-life salvation here on earth in jeopardy. The fact that things worked out well for him, and it sounds like he's collecting millions of dollars by running a not-for-profit charity that is supposedly saving kids from pedophile network rings, that's great for him and any lives he saved. But one thing's for certain, whatever success they are having, it's not because there is a God who is helping and blessing them. Because it makes no sense that there is some supreme being performing miracles for Tim Ballard and his charity to save children, but allowing children to be abducted and forced into sex trafficking in the first place. And this is the dangerous logic, or lack of logic, that so many religious people base their entire lives on, which often in turn helps feed into the ever-growing supply of children available for sex trafficking. Because hopes and prayers don't always work out for billions of other people who die praying for help, let alone collecting millions of dollars by running not-for-profit charities. And that's what I also find oh so disturbing when I heard this other interview. As a matter of fact, I didn't even want to see the movie in the first place. And not because of some self-righteous, pseudo-intellectual dipshit critic at Rolling Stone gave it a bad review. No, I almost didn't see the movie after I heard James Caviezel say this.
Listen, I came into this business. I had a voice speak to me. The voice spoke to me and asked me to become an actor. And I cried out and I asked God, please help me. What do you want of me? And he said, I'd like you to be an actor. And when I felt that, I felt like I was the only the child that God had. And I couldn't believe he loved me so much.
After hearing that, I couldn't help but think either this guy is a shameless narcissist or he is clinically delusional. Yet my wife was very moved by the interview, and I'm not sure if it's because her maternal instincts kicked in to go and save children or because she was having her period. The point is, she got it in her head that we needed to go save the kids by watching this movie. And to my surprise, the movie was actually worth watching. It made me feel like I was being informed about how child sex trafficking actually worked, especially outside the United States. I got inspired. I felt I needed to do something, and right away. So I started doing some research and watched more interviews, like this other one with James Jesus Christ Caviezel that goes way beyond time-honored Catholic cliches.
They send them to places like that all over the world. These biolabs, I think this is part of the whole business.
What do they do with them in the biolabs when they receive them?
Well, either making the adrenochrome or they're using it to from what I was told, is that, and also for making agents to, kill people with it. So, if I'm a half Irish, half Swiss, they can get my DNA code and create a cocktail, put it off in an airplane, and I'm the only one that dies of a heart attack in the plane. And then you watch a James Bond movie, you go, boy, that's really weird. So,
wow.
These are the kinds of disinforming conspiracy theories that are easily debunkable, but all too many religious people fall for. By the way, despite those interviews, I have tremendous respect for James Caviezel after learning he has adopted 3 children from China. That is beyond commendable. It's great. I wish I could be that selfless. But I'm not. I'm too skeptical and cynical and even judgmental, you could say. But more importantly, I'm too moored to reality to take on such overwhelming responsibility, all because of religious delusions. And I don't want to judge, but I definitely don't care to save the world solely because I'm expecting a pat on the head from an imaginary God in an imaginary heaven. And that's what I feel needs to be said about the Sound of Freedom that you definitely won't hear from most right-of-center media outlets like Fox, let alone Tucker Carlson now that he's crushing it on Twitter, or a bunch of other religiously conservative pandering podcasts that contribute to misleading people about reality. Yet you won't really hear this either from their lefty, virtue-signaling progressive polar opposites in the New York Times or Rolling Stone that gave the movie not just an unfair review, but somewhat ridiculed anyone who would actually watch the film and think that they could do something to help stop child sex trafficking. However, I will agree that there is a real danger to the delusional religiosity of people like James Caviezel when it does inspire other people like this guy and his real-life fever dream to stop the Pizzagate sex trafficking at the basement of a pizzeria, only to find out it was all bullshit right before he got arrested on a federal felony, not to mention risking other people's lives that day. These are the kind of bad ideas that get pushed onto people that cause them to see signs and meaning where there are none, and they don't realize it until it's too late, until they've made a major mistake with their life because they thought God was guiding them. And while I know you can't prove a negative, like I can't prove the Greek god Zeus does not exist, you can debunk a myth, like Greek mythology, by using a little bit of logic. So when I hear Tim Ballard talk about the miracles that God performed in order to stop these child predator rings, it just begs the question, why would God allow them to happen in the first place? And for any religious people who think they know the answer to that question, you don't. What you think you know is a delusion. And that can be proven through MRI tests and a series of many other tests that have proven the differences in brain activity that causes religious people to create whatever reality they need to believe in their head versus skeptical, cynical, and often cranky atheists like me who refuse to fall for religious ideas that we managed to outgrow from our religious upbringing. And having grown up Catholic, I'm painfully familiar with this line of thought that makes people think that everything that's wrong in the world is clearly the work of Satan. But any remote good that comes about, well, that's obviously God working in mysterious ways by leaving cryptic cookie crumbles for you to figure out where they lead. That's not how reality works, though I understand why there are people who think this way. I used to think that way too when I was younger and religious. And there's a very explainable reason why people become so delusional. Because certain aspects of reality, such as child sex trafficking, are very hard to process if you're a decent human being who feels empathy for other people's pain. And don't get me wrong, it's a good thing to help others. But how and why you go about it makes a big difference between actually helping solve problems or making things worse. And for anyone genuinely interested in solving problems like child sex trafficking, you need to adhere to reality if you really want to stop it as opposed to playing a never-ending game of whack-a-mole. Unless, of course, you realize it's somewhat profitable to play that game by constantly asking for donations for a not-for-profit charity. Because if you really want to help end child sex trafficking, or realistically speaking, dramatically reduce it, you might have to drop a lot of the Christian and especially Catholic doctrines that keep the babies coming that even the parents themselves don't want to raise, especially in impoverished countries. Don't be handing out Bibles. Be handing out condoms instead, and allow abortion to be legal. The amount of unwanted pregnancies that end up in children not getting adopted and ending up in dysfunctional foster care just here in the United States alone is in the hundreds of thousands per year. And a significant percentage of them are often sexually abused and exploited, and then the cycle continues when they become adults. And that's the sad reality. And I get it. Abortions are a horrible procedure, and they should definitely be avoided in the first place by either using birth control or simply realizing that promiscuity is overrated. But the real reason why so many Christians are against abortion isn't necessarily about saving babies, but saving themselves from a delusional hell by thinking they're scoring brownie points with an equally delusional Messiah in their head named Jesus. And because of that logic, their zeal to ban abortions then makes it very difficult for many women who are raped, especially in a horribly unfortunate case in Ohio, where a 9-year-old girl got raped and impregnated by her mother's boyfriend, Gerson Fuentes, and her mother had to cross state lines to Indiana to get that abortion because it was illegal in Ohio where she was impregnated. And I'm willing to bet that abortion, ironically enough, saved this young girl's life. For anyone who seriously wants to help end child sex trafficking, take off the religious blinders and look at many of the root causes of the problem and stop looking to a God that doesn't exist to solve problems that shouldn't have even been allowed to be a possibility by the immutable laws of nature if such an all-knowing and all-powerful God existed. However, if going to watch Sound of Freedom gives you some psychological solace and peace of mind that you did your part in helping put an end to child sex trafficking, at least you'll enjoy the film, which I'll admit is a roller coaster ride of emotions that will have you on the edge of your seat, hoping that at least $1 of your ticket will do something positive towards ending this blight on humanity. And if I got anything wrong in this video, please let me know in the comments below. But if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell for upcoming videos, and check out the links below for my original art and merchandise. And thanks for watching.